Thank you, Charles, for having me. Thank you, AHF, for inviting me as well. So I'm going to switch gears. We're not going to talk about the surgery itself. We're going to talk about everything that happens before and after surgery, 6 weeks before, 12 weeks post-op, 3,024 hours. We're talking about the 1 hour mostly during this meeting. But that's the hour that patients are asleep. So I have disclosures. I do write books for patients and surgeons about swelling. I have a number of industry conflicts. Like Joel, I like to fly. I only have 5,000 hours, so I'm about halfway towards mastery. And one last disclosure, I heard Joel is retiring because he wants to beat this longest manned flight in history. Someone please talk him out of it. 64 days in that plane. So does swelling matter in total hip? I don't know. I don't have a long list of studies that show it does. We know that there's some cytokine data that suggests it does. So, and like most of you, my total knees did worse than my anterior hips, so I kind of put hips, in the back burner. They're doing great. They're DA hips. But I now have 2-week total knees that do better than my 2-week total hips, DA hips. Let that sink in. My total knees do better than my DA hips. And so I said, well, maybe I should be doing something for the hips and I should take them off the back burner. And so I applied some of these principles and we saw some better outcomes. So I think swelling matters for total hips. I think it, in fact, matters for every surgery because swelling is the enemy hiding in plain sight. It increases pain response. It predisposes towards chronic pain through bradykinin, PGE2. That's where you get that peripheral sensitization. That's how these patients get hooked on opioids. And additionally, it increases infection risk by decreasing blood flow to the area. And lastly, those of you like me, 50 and over, we have senescent cells. When we create trauma to those cells, they go down 1 of 2 pathways when they're senescent, fibrotic, or reparative. We'd love to have a personalized plan for every patient so that the recovery goes down that reparative pathway. So let me start with what I think I know, or at least what other people have told us. New England Journal of Medicine, if you reduce lower leg swelling, it reduces the recurrence of skin cellulitis. If we reduce swelling, it improves the healing time of non-healing ulcers. My team has been able to show that reduced swelling reduces opioids, assisted devices, and results in better range of motion. And Brian Lloyd's group showed that these patients always tell us with total knees, at least, that the knee wants to give way, right? They call it arthrogenic muscle inhibition. And I can show you some ways to improve that by reducing swelling. Additionally, swelling in a non-injured joint is not normal. That's why we exist, orthopedists. That's why rheumatologists exist. Lymphedema patients have permanent altered gait patterns because of swelling. Our total knee is the #2 cause of lower leg swelling worsening after cancer. It was a terrifying statistic. We can never have a perfect forgotten joint score that we're talking about up here if the joint is swollen. And we know that our total hip patients struggle to achieve normal walking speed and stride lengths. So let's go over the total knee data. Again, unfortunately, I don't have great hip data. I was hoping to have it by this meeting, but I failed twice so far. So here's our study. We showed that finally, again, intuitively, as swelling goes up, range of motion goes down. I think we all know this, but this proves it. Additionally, as swelling goes up, you need more opioids. It hurts more. Please look at this study at the bottom. This was just published 3 months ago. Total hip arthroplasty in northern New Jersey. These surgeons all thought they were using 30 oxycodone or less. It turns out when they actually evaluated every single patient, a minimum of 47 oxycodone up to 143 for a total hip replacement patient. Again, as swelling goes up, the patient feels like the leg wants to give way. It increases the need for walkers, canes, and fall risk. So you can see this graph that we've created. The blue line is, this is the #2 center in the world for lowest swelling and research. This is Doug Dennis's lab, Brian Lloyd's work. 34% more water in the leg on day 7, not on day 1, not on day 2, but 7 days. Exactly when you guys get that phone call in the office, oh, my calf hurts, I can't put any weight on the leg. You send them for the requisite ultrasound, which is negative. Here's why. This is maximum swelling that day. And you can see a week later, it only goes down by 2%. So that's why they're miserable the first 2 weeks. So anything we can do to keep them from climbing Mount Everest and have them climb a much smaller hill is going to improve their overall recovery. And you can see that by the next magenta line. That's my step count and my therapy protocol down to 26% average swelling, an anti-inflammatory wash down to 21%, extended length TXA, cold compression, a special lymphangion stimulating stocking down to 15.6, a 60% reduction in swelling because I'm actually looking at it. Most of us want to worry about that 1 hour. We send them away because we get paid for the next 90 days. So what accounts for that 58% drop in swelling that can carry over for total hips? So again, we've got that 1,000 hours pre-op. That's where the education and optimization, essential amino acids makes a difference. Then you've got the 6 hours at the ASC, or if you're down at Charlie's place, 3.5 hours. And again, you've got the post-op. That's where the therapy protocols that I've developed over the last years make a difference. So education, this is the #1 game changer in my practice. I apologize. It's not DA, it's not KA, it's not TXA, it's education. Having personally sat in the chairs across from the doctor with the diagnosis of cancer and things like that in my family, it's terrifying to sit in those chairs as a patient. And everything you tell them after you give them that diagnosis, it goes in one ear, not the other. So it's super important to educate patients, especially if you want that buy-in for the optimization, both pre and post-op. This is out of European Knee Society, Andrea Baldini. He saw my talk in Brixton, and I said, geez, I wonder if we could ice the whole leg, if it would make a difference. We do that for cardiac, one bypass, we ice the heart. So he showed that cold compression, this is going to be published, I think, next month in JOA, cold compression alone, 1 hour preoperatively, led to lower SED rates and better range of motion. So a simple intervention looking at swelling. About post-op, I co-developed this step count with Dr. Mandume Karina. He used track patch, I used a Fitbit, and we found numbers eerily similar despite doing this independently. And patients love this. They always ask you how much is too much, and you tell them, oh, let the leg tell you. It'll tell you when it's hurting too much. It's too late then. They've already gone way down that inflammatory pathway. And I would ask you, how many of you, if you sprain your ankle today, how many of you tomorrow would go to a physical therapist to do a 90-minute workout? Or try to walk 10,000 steps? None of us. That's not what we do for shoulder, rotator cuff either. We're stuck like this for 6 weeks, right? So again, I would encourage you to at least think about this. The older, the gray and bald heads in the room like me, remember that when we did the press fit total hips, we made them non-weight bearing. We had a giant posterior incision. By 2 or 3 weeks, those patients were very comfortable, very comfortable. And yes, I saw lots of the videos yesterday. 10% of patients are able to do more than those steps and get away with it. But it's the other 90% we should be worried about. So here's track patch data. This is Journal of Arthroplasty in November. You can see that using technology, we encourage patients to go, go, go. And in fact, they were very happy with this paper because at week 3, they were back to their pre-arthritic step count, 3,500 steps, same as pre-op. But look at their function. These people at 2 weeks and at 6 weeks can't get off a toilet. But you can see if you minimize the swelling, you get that function back quickly, they have a more normal life, less fall risk, happier, lower opioid risk. So here's a patient on our data that didn't listen to my step count. He's got 2 weeks, no PT, no opioids, 106 to 100 degrees. Many patients would say, wow, or many surgeons would say, that's pretty amazing, that's pretty good. In my office, that's a B. I'm unhappy with this patient. Because when you do follow the step count, you can get to 117 degrees, also with no PT and no opioids. So what about extended length TXA? I think this is going to be another game changer for orthopedists in the next couple of years. Marcus Ford's working on helping us develop what the exact amount is. But the question really is, when does the joint stop bleeding? Is it right after surgery? Definitely not. Is it 1 day post-op? Probably not. Is it 7 days? I don't know. So here was our protocol that got us down to that 115 degrees. We used 1,300 milligrams orally, pre-op, post-op. I injected a gram into the suprapatellar pouch. And then 15 days once a day, and we were able to get this significant reduction. We separately have submitted a paper, it's been accepted for publication, 5 DVT out of just under 1,000 cases, about 40% hips. None of the hips had DVT, no PE. So again, if you're asking yourself, is this safe? At least with my protocol, it's safe, so I think this is a stepping stone. So extended length TXA, how much, how often? Please be careful on renal dysfunction. So this is my current plan. We use 1,300 milligrams PO, BID for 7 days, so long as the GFR is over 45. If it's under 45, I go back to that 1,500. Again, I'm a little worried about this theoretic seizure risk, although, show of hands, anybody seen a seizure from TXA? Yeah, me either. So hopefully that's going to stay that way. How does cryotherapy work? Again, there's some literature saying it works, some literature says it doesn't. Let's go back to physics. You guys remember having to take that from medical school. It was painful for me, just like you. But if you use the Van Hoff law from thermodynamics, we know that if we drop 1 degree, take 1 degree Celsius out of the system, we can expect about a 6.7% decrease in cytokine production. And again, there's a paper that proves that. How about essential amino acid supplements? This is really important, and you want to start this 5 to 7 days, and I do have a conflict here, but just talking about, generic brand name essential, rather than brand name essential amino acid supplements, we know that if we start 5 to 7 days pre-op, we increase the number of M2 macrophages. Those are basically the garbage men of our leg. The CMA is going on down the street here, and at the stadium, do they hire one janitor to clean up that stadium that night, or do they hire thousands of janitors to get it clean and ready for the next day? So shouldn't we do the same thing for that patient, get 1,000 janitors, 1,000 M2 macrophages ready to go for the trauma that we're about to place upon that leg? Additionally, it suppresses inflammation through separate pathways, and it increases angiogenesis. Lastly, no muscle loss for total knees at least, and 2 years later, continued persistent improved quad function, which is an important factor for independent living. Again, all of our patients are generally over 50. This is important to them. They want to stay independent. How about using a lymphangion stimulating stocking? Absolutely, it makes a difference, but you got to find one that works with low pressure. This is my worst patient. This is a gentleman that had to be on full dose anticoagulation. He's on post-op day 6, maximum swelling day, and you can see how the ecchymosis has almost completely resolved in the areas where we stimulated those lymphangions. But look in the upper thigh, thick, tight, a 2.5-inch difference in thigh girth at that level. So hopefully later this month, I have a commercial product that we'll be evaluating to do the same for hips, because I think this is going to make a difference. And again, this is because 70% of the lymphangions are in the skin level. So rather than wearing those SCDs, which are tight, and patients don't comply, you're trying to squish the lower vessels, the collecting vessels, why don't we just stimulate the surface and get a 96% compliance like at my office? So lower total knee swelling leads to better results. We have consistently used 10 tramadol or less since 2017. We average 20 degrees better at week 2 and week 6 than anybody else published. We have, at worst, a 2.2% 90-day recidivism rate despite a 1.19 comorbidity index, and at best a 1.8%. This led to number 11 lowest cost in the nation. All right, so back to hips. I know it's all knees. I'm sorry I don't have anything about hips. But really, Charles, I got to thank Charles for encouraging me to take the hips off the back burner. So I think if we reduce total hip swelling, we're going to reduce pain and opioids. We're already currently in my office 95% opioid-free. We can improve the gait pattern and get off assisted device faster. I think we might get a little better range of motion, possibly reduce dislocation risk, and may reduce arthrofibrosis risk, which is a real thing for total hips. So where do we need to head? What does the future need to be? We need to create a baseline swelling curve. We need to create a data collection sheet, and then identify sites that any of you are willing to reach out to me. I'd love to have some sites working on this with me, that we can beat the average swelling, and then ideally bring that out to patients. Patients want and expect a comprehensive episode of care pathway, not just the 1 hour of robotics and technology. They want the whole deal, and this is what we can deliver. So again, this is the one paper that came out recently showing that CRP increases post-op day 1, and it continues to increase at post-op day 5, mirroring that same spike up to at least day 7 for total knees. I'm on my 3rd modification of the BIA techniques. I still don't have an answer yet. One of the industry sponsors here may have a solution for me, the tattoo. And lastly, you may have seen my video yesterday. I'm really reaching out to you. I have personal family members that I had to send away to 13 months for opioids that were prescribed by an orthopedic surgeon. I've got a mother that's addicted to these things. Anterior Hip Foundation, you guys all decided to do anterior hip because there's less pain, there's better recovery. So I think you are the prime group that I'd love to get you onto my March to a Million, cost you nothing. I send you the PDF, you hand it out to the patient. We bring this back to a national attention because COVID really hid this under the rug. We need to start talking about it. It's a real problem in our community. Thank you very much.